All right, we're just off mute at the moment and we're going to get underway because we are a little bit past starting time and we need to do that. I'm just going to quickly begin with a karakia and then hand over. Tue ke runga, tue ke raro, tue ke waho, tue ke roto, tue ke te here tangara, ka rongo te pō, ka rongo te ao, home hui kai ki e. Good morning, everybody. Welcome along today. We're getting straight into it with what is a really busy day for council with heaps on our agenda. So hopefully we'll have a good day ahead, but we have an important workshop today as well. I'm about to hand over on that, but it will be on the draft engagement strategy, which we've been looking forward to receiving and hearing about for a while now. So I'll hand over. Who shall I hand over to first? Sarah. Okay, thank you.
Well, tēnei te mihi kia koutou katoa, nau mai hoki mai tauti mai I tēnei wā. A ko ai rau, he mokopuna au, maunga pohatu rau ko Hekiranga Uku Maunga, Sarah Martin tōku ingoa, ko au te iwi Partnership and Engagement Advisor, ka huri e teo te reo Pākehā. Morena everybody, my name is Sarah Martin and I am the iwi Partnership Engagement Advisor at ROC. ORC, apologies. And I also want to introduce Kate Pettit, who is also our Strategic Engagement Officer, Senior Advisor. It's our pleasure to be here with you today, and we thank you for your time on this very chilly looking misty morning. So I appreciate you coming out to be a part of us. Kate and I's role sits underneath the executive vice team. It's a relatively new team. Myself have only been in the role coming up 6 months or 7 months maybe, and Kate is coming up 10 months, I think, from memory. So as I said, relatively, there we go. A relatively new team. So really excited to share this piece of work that Kate and I have been working on the last few months. So I'm going to hand it over to Kate. She'll get into it. So
Kia ora, Sarah. Good morning, everyone. This workshop today precedes the paper being presented later on our update on implementation progress on He Mahi Rā Rewha, so the two directly feed into each other. So we've got an hour-long workshop this morning, and again, yes, thank you for coming in. You've got a full day and a full agenda ahead of you, so we appreciate the extra hour that you've given us. So today we're going to run through our draft engagement approach. We're going to give you a little bit of information about why we decided to go in this direction, and also around what that actually means for the communities that we serve. We're going to provide you with a preview of some of the resources in that engagement approach. You will see that there's selection up on the wall behind Councillor Wilson, and there's also some on the table over there that we'll have some time afterwards to have a look at if you wish. And we'll be asking for some councillor feedback and some input throughout the workshop today. So the first thing is, why does ORC need an engagement approach? There is really good engagement happening all across our council, but feedback tells us that we can be better at engaging with our communities. An engagement approach will help us to build a consistent and effective approach that will allow us to put all that good practice that's going on throughout the organisation and enhance whole organisation approach to engagement. We've taken the recommendations that have been made and the identified gaps that exist, and we have incorporated those and addressed those into our approach. Some of those are around reducing siloed working, supporting relationship and stakeholder management, integrating Mataraka Māori into our engagement practice, building institutional knowledge throughout the organisation on what works and what our communities respond well to, and integrating mechanisms to evaluate and report on our engagement activities to support continuous improvement. We also wanted to develop an engagement approach that serves the whole region. Otago is a really diverse region with a unique geographical landscape spanning 7 Papateka Runaka, and home to many varied communities. So we wanted to develop an approach that can be applied inclusively to the whole of our community and to everyone that calls Otago home. What we want our engagement approach to do is start with building awareness and understanding internally. So we want to build staff's capability and capacity to deliver good engagement. We want to build cultural good manners into our practice so that everybody feels welcome, safe, and respected. We want the opportunity to be more visible in the communities. We want to enhance communities' awareness and understanding of council's activities, particularly some of those lesser known activities. We want coordinated effort. So we want all of our staff to be able to talk to our community about all the different types of engagement that are going on, past, present, and future, so that we're able to support communities when they ask us questions that might not be directly related to the reason why we're there for that particular on that particular engagement. Our community engagement survey gave us a recommendation that we need to start introducing more targeted engagement strategies that serve the diverse preferences of our various demographic groups. So we want to provide engagement opportunities that are available for everybody to participate in a range of different ways. We'll also be looking at introducing a variety of engagement activities. And what that means is that we'll be not only picking methods of engagement because they are the preference of the community, but they also serve the purpose of why we're there. So they help us to actually gather the feedback and input that we are looking for. There is absolutely no question that good engagement supports community well-being, and we should really be thinking about that. So what we hope that our approach will result in is a community that sees ORC as a reliable community-focused council. So helping us to build those enduring council community relationships, an increased connection from the community in the work that we do, and therefore directly impacting increased participation. Community empowerment. We want our communities to feel a sense of ownership over their local projects and the decisions made, and that they've been part of those. We want to build community resilience by fostering a network and support collaboration with our communities. And we want to welcome diversity. We know that engagement can have a direct impact on well-being. We want to make sure that all of our engagement makes sure our communities feel connected to the place and to each other. Our engagement approach is proposed to sit in an online engagement hub inside ORC. This is an internal platform that provides a one-stop shop for all staff for all engagement needs. Sarah and I will be really crucial to managing that, and we will also be there offering our support in a variety of different ways. What can live inside this engagement hub has a fairly unlimited potential, but outlined here is a few of the core elements that we plan to implement straight away. What we will be doing is the engagement hub is going to be iterative. So we will be constantly developing new materials and refining existing materials based on the progress of good practice engagement globally, but also in response to what our communities need and what our staff need. So we will house in our engagement hub a engagement approach. The engagement framework, this is an engagement framework that helps us to create a culture of good engagement practice across the organization. This has been designed through the Pāhara Kiki model due to its applicability and relevance in social and environmental contexts. We will have a, learning and development area. There is a whole raft of resources globally in New Zealand that are specific to New Zealand communities that showcase and help to build capacity and best practice engagement. So we'll be housing a load of those. We'll also be introducing training opportunities, case studies, recorded exemplars from across regional and local councils in New Zealand. We will have our toolkits. These are going to be clear processes, best practice guidance, practical tools for effective community engagement. We're going to talk slightly more around those in a minute, so I'm going to leave that one there. Methods to measure engagement. We'll have evaluation guidance, processes and frameworks. We'll also have an internal audit tool, which will allow us to look at across the whole organisation how our community engagement is standing up against some of these some of the quality standards that we're putting in place. We'll have a section for events and activities. This will be a programme of engagement, facilitation resources, and engagement calendars. And then finally, we will have our cross-council engagement group. We've already set that up. We've had our first meeting. That group is really designed to help Sarah and I to listen to the council. We've got 18 members of staff from across the whole council and all the different teams, and they're already feeding in about what it is that's going to really help them, coming up, identifying gaps and opportunities, and we've already had some really great ideas that we've taken and run with already. One of the components of our approach is to be more visible in community. We would really like for the next year to be able to commit to an annual community event, a programme of community events across the region. We want to be more visible. We want to be at different things. We want to be there without a transactionary approach. We want to bring community awareness and understanding. It will help us to reach audiences that we might not otherwise reach, and really helps us to start build a bit of a social license out in community. What we hope is that we're going to be able to have a whole ORC representation at these events. Teams can come and showcase their work, whether or not they are engaging or not. Councillors, we'll have projects who want to come along who are in their planning stages of engagement to get a little bit of a feel for what the community think. Or we can also just be understanding the priorities of the community across our next 3-year cycle. We'd really, really like to commit to being at a minimum of one event in each district. Obviously, we have the potential to scale this up over time. And this would be in addition to some other events, such as our cultural events, Otago Polyfest, and ad hoc events like the South Dunedin Street Festival, for example. So the first thing we're going to ask councillors today is to help us to identify where in the community you think, in your community, you think we should be at. So which events are important to your communities, which bring the most people in. You're very welcome to put down more than one, because I know some areas will have one, but it will really help us to build an understanding of the different districts and to start thinking about where we're going to be.
Can you go back to what you mean by district, with all respect? I mean, we're all here to represent pretty large wards.
Yeah.
And so we cover the Catlins, the Lower Taieri, so the Lower Kluka and the whole part of the Taieri.
Yes.
In the Molyneux ward. Are you wanting us to put 3 up or 1? I'm just checking because I'm not really clear.
Sure, and it's a really good question. I think we want to. I would like you to put as many as you like, but perhaps star the biggest one or the one that you think draws the most people in from the whole region. I think we need to be really, it would be lovely to see that we can go to everything, but we can't. And so we need to be able to identify a program, commit to a program that we're going to go to. Sorry, Councillor Wilson, it doesn't answer your question. I'm telling you to do both.
I think what Kate's saying, so the Molyneux ward is pretty much made up of 4 different regions.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I
I
wouldn't read too
guess,
much into the district term.
Yeah.
I would
No.
go with,
Yeah,
I
go
would
with
go
the-
with one
go
of
with
the
the-
most significant events or
Yeah.
areas we should go to.
Great,
community of interest or whatever.
thank you, so wording change there.
I mean, for Dunedin, it's slightly easier, but not difficult as well, yeah.
Sorry.
Yes,
Sorry, there might be other parts coming up, but we're assuming that we want to go to an existing event rather than that we want to create something new as well, eh? Yeah.
at the moment, yes, I
Yeah.
think that's the most
Because of the
obvious,
budget, maybe, but-
easiest option to leverage off what already exists and what our community already know about and attend.
Yeah, it's just like something like attending them might seem, this is good, I'd like to do this, but let's say you held an annual catchments get together or something.
Yeah.
And it drew in heaps of people and they paid for their own travel to get there. It could be cheaper and it could be effective, that's all.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great idea
Yeah.
and something that we can put down to explore and work towards. But I really like that idea and we have spoken about it. I think this is just a bit of a first cab off the ranks, if you like, to
Yeah.
kind of get us out there in the community
Yep.
as quickly as possible.
Is it helpful to be putting stuff down that we're already going to? Like, are we starting like slate or
Yep.
just
Yeah.
building off what we're already doing?
We know what we're already doing. We want to do more than that. And we want it to be, we want to take quite an equitable approach across the region. So we've got a list of what we're already doing. We're looking for additionals.
But we can assume we'll
Yes.
keep going the ones we're already.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So if everyone wants to, if you have some ideas and you want to, Sarah's going to go around and just pick up your post-its as we go. But if anyone's got any ideas about where you think your community would like to see us, we'd love to hear them. Can you put them on there? Right back and we'll just get them up on.
Oh, I've got one.
Great.
More.
Thank you. Oh, that's good. Ideas? Thank you.
Okay, you'll put down the campus festival, will you?
Yeah, it's,
I think they have a big festival down there, don't they?
yeah, but it's the time of year that staff possibly aren't available as well,
I
yeah.
know, it's the same.
And that's the problem is, I don't want to commit people to going on long weekends to, that's the problem with a lot of these events, and so, and that,
Put that as the best ones to go to and then we'll work through.
yeah, but what we're taking,
If they're the right ones, then put
Yeah.
them up.
also what we're taking to them, and.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's frustrating.
So, you can go to that. Put that, yeah, I think so. I'll
Thank you very
come, I'll
much.
come to that.
Oh.
You want-
Yeah.
Some of them, yeah,
Thank you.
it's like, not, key stuff, it would make sense. We got,
The big ones are the obvious ones. I think that's one of the
sometimes
keys.
just got people to decide just to be there
Yeah.
for a while, so they can understand that we're there.
And I also think it doesn't have to be a big entourage of us. It can just be small people.
Yeah.
Coffee.
I know what it is with South
Yeah.
Dunedin.
Great, thank you.
Gary, we're just putting down any events in your, well, they can be across the region where community might like to see ORC presence. We're talking about the engagement strategy, so
It's a lot of.
anything's going up there at the moment that you think might draw a crowd that'd be interested in stuff we do. Yeah.
Put it down.
There's definitely some discussion and more events popping out. So if there's anything else, pop it on a post-it. Sarah and I will pick it up and capture it. So,
Sorry. Don't you want to use it?
Sponsorship and politics.
Sponsorship, yeah, we'll be, you know, I think we need to really start looking at how we do it. The format, how we do it. If you want to just pop out sponsorship with a question mark, that'll help us to.
If you did do what Becky did for the old $500 pleasing count.
No, I think he's just been briefed by Councillor Robson. Great. Oh, that is filling up. Fabulous, thank you. Are you happy for us to move on?
Yeah, sorry.
Great, fine. The plan with that information is we'll take it back, analyse it, we'll look at the feasibility of it. The time of year, I heard Councillor Wilson talk about, you know, committing to weekends and such like. So, you know, these things we're not immediately going to take all of these and run with them, but we will start looking at a programme that seems realistic and is within current capacity. Oof, computer was just about to update itself. All right, we're going to come back to that toolkit component because this is one of the most crucial elements for building a culture, good engagement at OIC. The toolkits are designed to be a whole range of resources and tools to support staff to engage well. As you can see here, we've given some examples of what's being built. I said previously, it's an iterative process. So these will continue to be refined and we will be putting a lot more in. This is just an example. So we've got some how-to guides. And so these are ranging across a whole spectrum. And we've got some examples up on the walls for you to have a look at after. But for example, we've got this event planning guide. And that will be done in collaboration with our people and safety team. So we'll be making sure that, you know, when we're going out into the community to engage, that we're actually ticking off all the really crucial elements of health and safety, as well as thinking about how we're going to engage with that community at that particular event. Silly things like, does the place that we're doing the event take $2 coins for heating? Because we've had that come up, you know, that someone's arrived to run a community workshop and the place is freezing and there's no $2 coins. So that's the kind of thing that we'll have in something like our event planning guide. Again, you know, with our guide to inclusive engagement, we'll be looking at Otago's whole community and how we make sure that we adapt and build in methods for engagement to reach our diverse communities and be inclusive of everybody. We'll also have resources. So you've got one actually in front of you, which is a engagement workflow, which will help staff to understand how you move through the different stages of engagement, from planning to delivery to evaluation, decision, and wrapping it all up. The methods matrix is really around introducing a variety of engagement activities. So it will be lots of different types of methods of engagement. There will be, it's a register, and so it will help staff to pick out appropriate and relevant engagement methods for their community size, whether it's everybody, small groups, large groups, technical groups, and also for the purpose of engagement. And then we don't want to recreate the wheel on some of these. So we'll also be adding in other, sometimes international, but these two here are both New Zealand centric engagement guides that have already been built. So we've got the Yavu Foundations of Pacific Engagement and our Natural Hazards and Climate Change Let's Talk About Risk engagement guide as well. So we'll be adding all of those in to support with staff. The toolkits specifically will follow a step-by-step guide for each stage. They've been designed so they're really practical and easy to use. They go through 5 stages: plan, design, deliver, evaluate, and decision. They have been designed to allow staff to either methodically follow the whole step-by-step process, or to dip in and out on areas that they feel maybe less informed and knowledgeable about. Toolkit guides will highlight internal collaboration processes, so they'll tell you who, at what stage you need to be talking to within ORC. They will all have associated templates and other guides and resources attached to them. So when you're reading through a stakeholder engagement guide, you're being linked immediately to who are Otago's Communities Guide, Inclusive Engagement Guide. So everything's linked up with each other. And they also house prompt questions to support diversity of thinking. This has been done because while there's a huge diversity of brain power in ORC, you know, sometimes engagement planning is left up to a very small team, and we need to be ensuring that we're enabling people and supporting people to think about concepts and ideas that might not exist. As I said, there's a selection and examples of the resources for afterwards, and I would really encourage you to have a look, because you will see how the functionality of them through looking at some of the examples. We've been trialing some of these toolkits while they've been in the build process, and we've had some really amazing feedback. And I've just captured some of that feedback there. One of the critical things is that we wanted it to be very easy to follow. And we wanted it to really support people building the important documentation around engagement plans, some kind of critical thinking outside of the box, and also around that defensible decision making. So why we've decided to do what we're proposing we're doing, we can back that up. In front of you is a case study. It's hypothetical. Example of how we might use some of these tools in an engagement plan. Now, this case study, it doesn't matter what type of engagement it is, where it is in the region, but what we've tried to do is give you a little taste for where in the toolkits, which stage this applies to, the guides and resources that might be used, the aspirational actions that we would like to see staff do, and then the aspirational community outcomes. So if we go to the first one, stage 1, section 6 in the planning stage is around understanding which partners, communities, and stakeholders to engage with. So you'll see there's 4 different guides that you could access and use. We've got a quote, an aspirational quote from a staff member, and then we undertook a comprehensive analysis of all stakeholders to ensure that no one was overlooked. And then we've got some aspirational feedback that might come from community should we get this right. So this really just tries to give you a flavour of what the toolkits would do and how they will function. I'm very happy to give people a little bit of time to look through this, because I'm aware it's a little bit of reading. We've given 3 examples in the planning stage because the bulk of engagement comes in that planning stage, and then we've given an example through the rest of the stages.
Can I
Yes.
ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you have a toolkit to get the Dunedin population along to consultation meetings or any type of meeting Sometimes we have success, we've had some success south Dunedin, but generally it's been a frustrating process. So will you be working your way through that?
We might, yes, we actually have an opportunity to give us some ideas for things, so we'll capture that, we'll get that written down. But I think there isn't one toolkit that can do that, Councillor Scott. I think we have to think about taking the lessons learned from where it's worked previously and why might that have been, and start capturing that and figuring out why that worked, what was different in that particular time. I think a lot of it is around targeted engagement methods or targeted comms methods in terms of building awareness of that process. And it's potentially also around, are we using the right method to attract people to participate? So I think there's a whole host of things that feed into that.
Thank you.
Kate, and then
Engagement's a two-way. So, and I might be picking up when we're going to use this, but engagement is a two-way thing. And
Yes.
you asked us for places that engagement would work. And then you focused on some case studies where I think we are trying to go out and engage with what our projects. What I'm not understanding is what we're taking or there is a lot of engagement. People want to tell us or ask us questions and we fail miserably to deliver that. We say at meetings, we say, oh, we'll get back to you on that. And we don't necessarily, or it's frustrating. And so I just want to check on that spectrum, are you just focusing at where we want to get information in this engagement tool?
No.
Or are you ensuring that that other stuff will be picked up? Because the places that I'll be putting you is that people will want you to go out and understand where you're at. And a lot of that would be about work programs and understanding how that can be influenced and picked up, or understand when things might happen in that area. And so I'm just, if it's about a two-way conversation, I'm really interested to know where the examples of that feedback loop are.
Yeah. So throughout the planning stage, for example, there's lots of information about planning to capture feedback. So being prepared early on in the process around what you need to be able to do that in terms of resourcing and capacity, the tools that you're going to need to do that, and the methods in which you're going to capture that feedback. The planning stage of engagement is also a lot around actually the team understanding what you're there to engage on and the answers that you will bring. So having the appropriate knowledge and resources. So I think what you're asking, Councillor Wilson, feeds into a lot of different areas. We also then talk about it in the delivery stage, making sure that you are fully prepared to engage in those conversations and be capturing that rich dialogue. There'll be a guide on feedback mechanisms and then closing the loop mechanisms, so that these things are all built in right from the planning stage of engagement. And part of the reason we want to be more visible is to allow community to have opportunities to talk to us about our whole work programming, what they're interested in, and not what we want them to engage with us on.
Thank you.
anyone else looks happy at the moment? Oh, Elliot.
Yeah, really on the case study, but no. All right. I'm sorry. Just on Brian's point about, I'm just thinking back to LTC stuff and I know Alan and I and even Richard might be able to test it, but we went to the university and actually got quite a lot of engagement there. It was really successful. Something that was fairly hastily organised and informal, but I wonder if that's more just about getting in front of people, and then someone else mentioned our South Dunedin stuff. The engagement there's been really good, and I wonder if that's more asking the right questions and having the right comments about it and stuff. So I think that Dunedin stuff's definitely doable, just about how we do it, but I'm just wondering in terms of the toolkit that you showed a little while ago with that like list of different things that we've got. Yeah, the inclusive engagement, what sort of things is that looking at? Is that mostly like cultural inclusivity or what kind of?
No, so it goes over the kind of the key concepts of equity, diversity and inclusion and what they mean, but also what they mean to an Otago community. So we're looking, we're looking broader, but then we're also narrowing it down into what it means to our community. Within that, there's kind of principles of what inclusive engagement looks like. They actually feed directly into our auditing mechanism. So, we're asking people to follow the principles, but then we also have a mechanism to ensure that they are. And if they aren't, we need to be able to identify that so we can build it further into the process. And we also have a resource, Councillor Weir, on targeted engagement, where we're looking at specific demographics that are potentially less heard, where we're exploring and identifying opportunities, just like going to the university, where we'll be able to capture, to reach those audiences and capture the dialogue within that. So it's broad, but it then comes back into a really Otago-centric way.
So there's stuff in there around accessibility, whether that's physical
Absolutely, yeah.
accessibility, but also stuff like financial accessibility, making sure there's not like
Yes,
prohibitive costs involved in getting people to come to our things during.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
And then that then feeds directly into choosing your methods as well. We link people back to the inclusive guide in choosing methods, and it also is linked back in our event planning guide. So accessibility, access, that sort of thing, parking, all the really what seems obvious, but often, because it's so busy, can fall off. So, and actually I'm just thinking on my feet here, but perhaps as a checklist that we might want to have where we just are ensuring people are ticking off certain things.
Awesome.
Okay. Alexa.
Thank you for this. It's great to see some effort going into engagement. It's unbelievably tricky. And we could be at the busiest event and have everyone just go straight past us. So relevance to things is really, really important. And in my time on the council, I've watched people engage when they're angry or scared. And it's quite difficult to get them to engage anything at any other time. And the other thing that I've noticed, and I put in there the Queenstown Multicultural Festival as one of the events we need to get to, because engagement seems to be limited to pretty much middle-class white people and tangata whenua mana whenua who have a responsibility to be there. And we have a much broader community than that now. So going to where they are is really important. And I can't remember what the percentage of Filipino living in Queenstown now is, but it's up like 9 and 10%. The latest census is like huge. And these people at least I don't, and I don't see any knowledge of what impacts them or what they want or what they expect from us or how they engage with us. So I almost wonder if, and I've also put Wanaka Show and Lake Hayes Show up there, but maybe those people already know how to get in touch with us, and maybe they will when they need to. And maybe we need to really be concentrating on the people that don't. So getting into things and it may not always be events, because events often and festivals are where people want to go and for recreation and to be social and to meet others. And we're showing up probably with problems or asking them to visit problems and to talk to us about them. Yeah, it's really, really tricky. And I noticed when I was at I did set tables up at the Remarkables Market to talk to people. It was so hard to get people to come and talk to me that didn't already know me. People that knew me, that was fine, and I had a chat to them, but people that didn't know me, they just wouldn't approach. They just wouldn't. Things to think about.
Okay.
Yes, want to respond to that,
Yeah, I'd
but
love to have a
assuming
response.
that we're wanting to talk to people about problems when presence sometimes is about more than that and supporting things that we're celebrating too at events like, for example, Balance Farm Awards or I don't know, I was thinking before, hey, where do people gather? Something like Challenge Wanaka, where we're actually celebrating that our waterways are pretty damn special and we're holding national or international events here. What is it that we're doing at these events? It's not always about here's all the issues we've got in our region. Sometimes it's also about, hey, we're pretty cool in Otago, we got awesome waterways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and we're part of making sure that that stays that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Lovely.
Anyone else? Oh, sorry, you were going to talk to that point as well, and then.
You are quite right.
Mm.
I think one of the reasons that it's difficult for people to engage with us is because there's a real lack of understanding about what we do. So part of it is around building that. But we have thought about this, and we've got some really great mechanisms in which we can engage people in a fun and interactive way. We've got NIWA serious games. We've got our environmental implementation interactive staff. You know, we don't have to go there and say, oh, hey, look, I've got this problem and, you know, we want your opinion on it. We can just start to be out there, having conversations with people, celebrating successes, but engaging people in our work in an indirect way through fun and interactive tools. I also wanted to touch on what you've mentioned about the Filipino community, and we would love to explore how we can make contact and to see how we can engage them in our processes. So we've jotted it down. If you know of anyone, we'd love to
I
hear from
do,
you.
we can.
Great.
talk offline.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was invited to be a participant in the Indian Communities celebration and reached hundreds of Indian community by just going along with my family to being a speaker and participating in dancing and all, you know, just, yeah. So it is easy to reach hundreds of people by just getting involved, yeah. Who we got next? And Gary, we'll have you, and then Tim, and then Alan. Thanks.
Thanks. I think, is that going, it's on green instead of red?
Oh.
I might say what she was going to say.
Well, we'll see.
Nothing wrong with that, Gary.
Don't worry now. I reserve the right to take it all back.
I think incentivizing or looking at sort of almost out of the box type opportunities, like you mentioned, some of those bigger events, and if we were to be there to sponsor or assist in some of the big multi-sport events where you've got people like supporters and the competitors there, and we're there with some staff and flags and some sort of assistance we're providing. But and this is getting into the nuts and bolts, but the likes of the Dunedin engagement or even Queenstown engagement in events, you know, if we advertise those, if our ad becomes a voucher that you get the free trip to that event on our buses, you just take the voucher along, that type of thing might help to get people along. It's incentivizing, I think, and looking to do more.
Yep. Oh, and who do I say next time? Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing that probably needs to be remembered too is the power of invitation. I mean, inviting people personally is always a really good way of getting a response. Either they'll say yes or no. And I know we're talking about a lot of people in Otago, but I mean, we do have good databases of contact details and all that sort of thing. So yeah, don't forget the invite. Yeah.
Thank you.
Alan, okay.
Is there a place in here for making use, I guess, of the networks of existing community organisations and not just thinking about events, but if we're thinking, we were talking about the Filipino community, for example, there are organisations that already have those connections and making connections with them, and whether that might be the place-based groups that are around the region or those wider interest groups, because it seems to me that saves us a whole lot of work. If there's already a group there with that network, if we can have connections with those groups and establish those relationships with those groups.
Councillor Somerville, you're absolutely right, and we are doing that as well. So we're starting to reach out to our community boards and to our local disability groups, and just to give you some examples, we're starting to build a register of relationships where we have touched base and they've said yes, absolutely, invite us to your event or whatever it is. So yes, we're doing both.
Excellent. Kate?
Yeah, just follow on from Alexa, I think the wonderful engagement was that AMP show was fantastic. And it certainly brought in people showing them the range of work. But it has to be a really clear purpose, and that's fine at that event. What I'm missing from all of this is the purpose and the case study. I mean, anything you're doing has to have a purpose, and I'm concerned that we just want to go out there and say this is the range of things we do. It has to, yeah, and so I just want to be really clear. Again, the feedback for the purpose and what it looks like and why we would be there. And we're just launching this afternoon perhaps a long-term plan. It's got some really interesting new things in it, like an environmental fund. It's going to reflect on the ICM work that's begun but hasn't yet got to the planning stage properly. And the more I thought about it as we've sat here this morning, is my view that we should be actually doing our own meetings to show that range of work potentially and inviting people in, because I think we've got quite a lot that we should be able to articulate, and actually we'll lose some of that message if we're just at other people's needs. So that's the big challenge for me, is how do we go from launching a long-term plan that's meant to be adding value to the community, that we've got a good story to tell, and why aren't we doing our own events for that? Just like,
The point that's come up a couple of times, and yeah, we've spoken about that as well, and that we're talking about other events, but certainly something that you've got on your minds as well. It's a good point, Kate. Lloyd?
Yeah, I think it all starts with visibility. To start off with, we got to get our visibility out there so people actually know we exist and what we do. And we got to work out different ways of telling our story all the time. I just following up from Gretchen, I believe there's a cycle for West Otago that's coming up here. It could have an international flavour.
We got some great cyclists around, council staff and councillors as well. There you go, Lloyd. Thanks. We're probably coming near the end of our. Oh no, we've probably got a wee bit more time, have we? How are we going?
We are fine. We're our final slide, which was really false
Brilliant.
feedback. And what are we missing? And you did that without asking. So
Nice. So you're just hoping for some feedback at this stage. Would you like to direct that any
No.
further, or just general feedback?
no, we just really wanted to know what you thought, but
Yeah.
also around what else is it that you think we should be doing and that we can start thinking about. The low hanging fruit is to leverage off what exists, build awareness. But we really, aspirationally, we'd love to get to the point where we are running our own events and having our own narrative around that.
Right. I was wondering before there was Kate's point before about we need to know our purpose, but I was wondering in your toolkit as you get, perhaps that's part of it. I don't know,
It
but
is.
that for somebody considering doing an event or going to an event or whatever, or engaging in any way, you need to have defined your purpose perhaps as part of it. So
Stage 1, step 3
cool.
is around defining your purpose.
Yeah.
And then what comes with that is your key messages that sit alongside that. I think it's really important to say that the events is just one component of much broader and a much broader engagement approach. But yes, purpose is very much captured.
Alexa.
This is just, I've been along a few times to Sustainable Queenstown things that they run up in Queenstown. And there's 2 staff from the ORC office who regularly show up. And that informal engagement is really appreciated by people. And, that's after work, it's usually 5:30, and they show up and they talk to people. And I sometimes wonder if that informal engagement is really, really good. And I don't know how much freedom people have to do that, but it's really appreciated. I've seen them, Alexa, it's not Alexa, and the other woman's name, and they show up so often, and always people want to talk to them.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's a really, really good way to go, and to have some parameters for those people so that they feel reasonably safe and having a chat about things.
I think it's not dissimilar to what Councillor Weir was saying about at the university. It was kind of a bit ad hoc, and you did it and it was really good. One of our resources is a calendar of regional events and activities. What we hope is that, you know, that will become somewhere that people go to see that market happening on that day, and we could pop down and we're doing some early engagement. It's important that we still retain a bit of a purpose about why
Yeah,
we're
that's
there.
exactly right. that they have that.
And so, you know, we need to factor that in, but we hope that there'll be things we commit to that we absolutely go to, but we're also want to encourage staff to be at lots of things.
But plantings and reforestation trusts and trapping groups and I don't know, it's all part of the community.
Yeah. Anyone else? Elliot.
I was gonna raise kind of similar to Alexa, just around responding to stuff sort of as they come, if it's not necessarily an annual event, it's sort of just something that comes up with giving some like one-liners and stuff that come. Having a way to be able to do that would be good, because it can take a while to plan that stuff if there's not like an easy process for that to happen. And I'm wondering also, I guess, if there's a way that, so I think one of the ways that we can not even engage, but just sort of show up, not even as staff, but just sort of show that we care about some event, would be providing public transport to it. Even if we're not at the event in a, you know, ORC capacity where we need to directly engage with people, but just sort of being able to respond to certain events. And even with our like Mataruki stuff, we've just put out some comms around what buses you can take to get there and stuff. Like, we haven't put anything special out there, but just the comms around how to use our public. I know it's like a little bit off tangent, but I think it's sort of, when we do that, it does show the community that
That's good.
we're aware of this event. We know people are going to want to get there. Our job is to get people from A to B. Here's us taking steps to do that, whatever. Could we probably would need some different framework. I don't think these frameworks would quite apply to that, but
It's a discussion.
that's what's been on my mind here.
Thanks.
So, no, it is a good point, like an all boats test or something, hey, we're here and we're buses,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, anyone else? We are
Thank you
done.
very much for your time this morning, and really engaged. We've had some really great stuff come back to us, which is exactly what we wanted. So we're really pleased with that. And we'll go away and digest it all and see what we can do. So thank you very much. So,
Thank you very much for coming along and demonstrating what you do, throwing a very engaging workshop with us as well, where you'd sorted all of those things in advance, I can see. So yeah, no, that was really good. I just need to close with karakia, and then yeah, we'll be. Oh, sorry, Kate, if you got something first.
Yeah, no, sorry, I don't want to, I'm just thinking about this afternoon. We've got a paper on this. Which sort of is on this, but it is wider. And we didn't really go into this, and I just want to ask one question, maybe
Oh,
easy.
yeah.
Sorry, this is all we got before this meeting, so we haven't really focused on this. This talks about an end point where we make a decision. First time we hear about something is a decision making. But I presume at times we will be involved at the start as well, and it's just when those how do you pick the ones that we're involved in with it and what we consult on at the start?
Yeah.
And that is really unclear to me. And that's why I'm actually having some hiccups this afternoon's paper, is this looks like we only come in once, and I'm not sure that is how I would have drawn that picture, depending on the significance of the paper. So I'm just raising it now. Maybe it's a question for this afternoon, but
You're saying it's not linear, it's yeah.
well, some things I mentioned, if you're going off on some stuff, ICM, for example, possibly is that you come in at the end. But having looked at the ICM stuff, for example, we've actually started off choosing which one to go, which councillor is involved, and working them right through the process. And and that's where I'm just asking, what is it at the start that gets the council involved at the start?
Yeah.
Or not? And that's unclear.
thank you. I think it's really really interesting point, and we'll go away and have a look at that. I think it should be incorporated in there.
It's a good question. I was trying to rephrase that in my head of when is it ORC space and when is it not, is that it?
It's operational as opposed to governance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't got that flavour.
I think there's one is participation of governors in the development and implementation of the process, and then often there's a decision maker. So I think it's separating the decision as a result of the engagement as opposed to who is involved in delivering and designing the engagement is what you're getting at. And that would depend on the level of the engagement and its importance. And that's the question you're asking is
Yeah.
how do we determine that?
Thank you. I will close with karakia. Kia tau te rangi Māori ki runga i ngā iwi o te ao. Thanks, everybody.
Well done.
Okay, we got a